Jai Hind everyone. So dear students, again it is economics class and we are discussing the chapter sectors of Indian economy. Dear students, we have discussed many topics. We discussed how sectors are classified. There are different bases. So on the basis of economic activities, sectors are divided into three: primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Then on the basis of working conditions, sectors are divided into two: organized sector and unorganized sector. And then on the basis of ownership, sectors are divided into two: public sector and private sector. Dear students, we also discussed about at the initial stage of development, developed countries have primary sector its most important sector in terms of total production and in terms of total employment. Then in 100 years, a shift have been taken place and the secondary sector became most important. In terms of total production and total employment, secondary sector became most important. And from past 100 years, now tertiary sector become most important in terms of total production and in terms of total employment. So dear students, we discussed about how different sectors became most important. What was the reason behind this? Then we also discussed even primary sector, even today, is overburdened. Nearly 50% people are engaged in primary sector, while the production increased many times in primary sector, in secondary sector and tertiary sector. Then we also discussed about how employment can be generated. So dear students, we will discuss the same. So be with me for next 30 minutes. So dear students, let's start third period of sectors of Indian economy. The very important question is how to create more employment. So take the case of Lakshmi with her 2-hectare plot, which is totally unirrigated land. What government can do? The government can spend some money or banks can provide a loan to construct a well for her family to irrigate the land. Lakshmi will then be able to irrigate her land and take a second crop, wheat. During the Rabi season, even she can grow one more crop as a wheat. Now suppose that 1 hectare of wheat can provide employment to 2 people for 50 days, including sowing, watering, fertilizer application and harvesting. There are many activities in farming. So two more members of the family can be employed in her own field. Now suppose a new dam is constructed and canals are dug to irrigate many such farms. What will be advantage of this? This could lead to a lot of employment. This could lead to a lot of employment generation within the agricultural sector itself, reducing the problem of underemployment. As you know that in agriculture, more people are engaged than required, and that is the case of underemployment. So like this, employment can be created. Now, there is one more way we can tackle this problem is to identify, promote and locate industry and services in semi-rural areas where a large number of people may be employed. Means in semi-rural areas, industries and services can be set up. They can be identified, they can be promoted, and they can be located. For instance, suppose many farmers decide to grow arhar and chickpea, that is pulse crop. Setting up a dal mill to procure and process these and sell in the cities is one such example. If many farmers are growing chickpea or arhar, setting up a dal mill. Why? To procure and process these and then sell it in the cities. It can, like this, employment can be created. Then opening a cold storage could give an opportunity for farmers to store their products, and products like potatoes and onions, and then farmers can sell them when the price is good. So two examples we have discussed: setting up a dal mill and opening a cold storage. It will help farmers a lot. After that, now in villages near forest areas, we can start honey collection centers. There are many villages which is near forest areas where we can start honey collection centers, where farmers can come and sell wild honey. It is also possible to set up industries like which can process vegetables and agricultural produce like potato, sweet potato, rice, wheat, tomato, fruits, which can be sold in outside markets, and it will be benefited a lot to the farmers who are dependent on forest for their livelihood. This will provide employment in industries located in semi-rural areas and not necessarily in large urban centers. So dear students, like this also, employment can be generated. Do you know that in India, 46.9% of the population belongs to the age group 5 to 29 years. 46.9% of the population belongs to the age group 5 to 29 years. Out of this, only 52% are attending educational institutions. Only 52%, dear students. It means 48% are not attending any educational institutions. They may be at home, or many of them may be working as child laborers. If these children are to attend schools, suppose I am talking about rest of the 48%, if these children are to attend schools, we will require more buildings, more teachers and other staffs. And you know, there is one study which is conducted by the Planning Commission of India that estimates that nearly 20 lakh jobs can be created in the education sector alone. 20 lakh jobs can be created. Similarly, if we are to improve the health situation, then we need many doctors, many nurses, many health workers to work in rural areas. So these are some ways by which jobs would be created. So lakhs of jobs could be created in educational sector and in health sector. Now, dear students, you know that every state or region has its potential for increasing the income and employment for people in that area. Every state or every region, it has potential for increasing the income and employment of the people of that area. It could be tourism or regional craft industry or new services like IT, information and technology. Some of these would require proper planning and support from the government. If government will support, many jobs would be created in any sector actually. For example, the same study by the Planning Commission says that if tourism as a sector is improved, every year we can give additional employment to more than 35 lakh people. 35 lakh people every year. They will get employment if tourism as a sector will be improved. So there are lots of chances where employment would be created. We must realize that some of the suggestions discussed above would take a long time. You know, it will take a long time to implement. But for the short term, we need some quick measures. Means government has to take some measure which is quick. So recognizing this, the central government of India, it made a law implementing the right to work in 200 districts of India and then extended to an additional 130 districts. Right to work. What is right to work? Any person who is willing to do work or can do work is having right to get work. That's why law was implemented. First in 200 districts of India and then extended to an additional 130 districts. Now, so the remaining districts in rural areas were brought under the Act with effect from 1st April 2008. 1st April 2008, and it is called National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, popularly known as NREGA 2005, and these days it is known as MNREGA 2005, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. What about this act? Under NREGA 2005, all those who are able to and are in need of work, they are guaranteed 100 days of employment in a year by the government. Means anyone who is able to do the work or who are in need of work, they will get 100 days of guaranteed employment by the government. And you know, if the government fails in its duty to provide employment, then government will give employment allowances to the people. Unemployment allowances to the people. If government is failed to give employment. So how good this act is? 100 days guaranteed employment in 1 year. And if fails, then unemployment allowances will be given to the people who are registered under this. The type of work that would in future help to increase the production from land will be given preference under the act. So it was a big measure taken by the government of India. Now, dear students, sectors on the basis of working condition. As we discussed already, that on the working conditions, sectors are divided into two: organized sector and unorganized sector. So what is organized sector? Who are working in organized sector? What are the benefits of organized sector? And the same for unorganized sector we will discuss. So division of sectors as organized and unorganized. Let us examine another way of classifying activities in the economy. This looks at the way people are employed. What are their conditions of work? Means in which condition they are working. Are rules and regulations followed there? Are there any rules and regulations that are followed as regards their employment? So let's see. We have two stories that we have to understand. One story is of Kanta and one story is of Kamal. Just see what are the differences between these two working conditions of Kanta and Kamal, and then decide which is more beneficial, where to work is more beneficial. So Kanta works in an office. She attends her office from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Means time is fixed. She gets her salary regularly at the end of every month. So where time is fixed, Even salary is also regular. After salary or in addition to the salary, she also gets provident fund as per the rules laid down by the government. She get other benefits also, other facilities also. She also gets medical and other allowances. Kanta does not go to office on Sundays. Means Sunday is a paid holiday. So there is provision of paid holiday. When she joined work, she was given an appointment letter stating all the terms and conditions of work. So she is having an appointment letter where all the terms and conditions of work is stated, clearly mentioned. So it is the condition of Kanta. Now let's see about Kamal. Kamal is Kanta's neighbor and he is a daily wage laborer in a nearby grocery shop. What is he? He is a daily wage laborer in a nearby grocery shop. What is his timing? He goes to the shop at 7:30 in the morning, very early, and works till 8 p.m. in the evening. So working hours very long. He gets no other allowances apart from his wages. So there is no facility which Kamal is getting other than his wage. He is not paid for the days he does not work. Means there is no provision of paid holidays. And even he is not having any leave. Nor was he given any formal letter saying that he has been employed in the shop. Means he is not having any appointment letter. So he can be asked to leave any time by his employer. So this is the condition of Kamal. And now you can understand who is working in organized sector and who is working in unorganized sector. So let's see. Organized sector. Kanta works in the organized sector. What is organized sector? So organized sector covers those enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and therefore people have assured work. They are registered by the government and have to follow its rules and regulations which are given in various laws. Organized sector covers those enterprises or places of work where the terms of employment are regular and people have assured work. This sector is registered by the government and follow all rules and regulations which is given in various laws. Laws like the Factories Act, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Gratuity Act, Shops and Establishment Act, etc. You know why it is called organized? It is called organized because it has some formal processes and procedures. It is organized because all works are done in organized manner. Processes are formal, procedures are formal. Some of these people may not be employed by anyone, but may work on their own, but they too have to register themselves with the government and follow the rules and regulations. So overall we can say organized sector is a sector which follow formal processes and procedures, which follow all the rules and regulations set by government, and which is registered by the government. Now, the people working in organized sector, so what about workers who are working in organized sector? So workers in the organized sector enjoy security of employment. Dear students, workers who are working in organized sector, they have security of employment, means their employment is secure. They have fixed number of hours for working. Like Kanta, if they work more, they have to be paid overtime by the employer. Means if the worker is working more than its fixed number of hours, then he or she will be paid overtime by the employer. They also get many benefits from the employers, many benefits. Which type of benefits? What are these benefits? So they get paid leave, payment during holidays, provident fund, gratuity, etc. Even they are supposed to get medical benefits. And under the laws, the factory manager has to ensure facilities like drinking water and a safe working environment. It is the duty of factory manager to provide these facilities, these very important facilities. And when they retire, these workers get pensions as well. After retirement, workers get pensions. Now, what about unorganized sector? So, dear students, Kamal works in the unorganized sector. Unorganized sector. And through that story, you can easily understand that every work is unorganized in the matter of Kamal. The unorganized sector is characterized by small and scattered units. Small and scattered units which are largely outside the control of the government, which is not under the control of the government. There are also rules and regulations, but these are not followed. There are rules and regulations, but these are not followed by the employers. Now, what about workers in unorganized sector? Look, dear students, jobs here are low paid, means salary is very low and often not regular. So, salary is low and irregular. While in organized sector, salary is high and regular. There is no provision for overtime, paid leave, holidays, leave due to sickness, etc. But in organized sector, there is provision of overtime, provision of paid leave, holidays, leave due to sickness. In unorganized sector, employment is not secure. People can be asked to leave without any reason. But if you go to organized sector, their employment is secure. When there is less work, such as during some seasons, some people may be asked to leave. If season is not at the peak, workers can be asked to leave the job. It means a lot also depends on the whims, the wishes of the employer. It's upon employer. So workers in unorganized sector are not safe. Salary is low, irregular, no provision of many benefits, employment is not secure, can be asked to leave without any reason. So the condition of workers in unorganized sector is not very good. This sector includes a large number of people who are employed on their own doing small jobs. Small jobs like selling on the street or doing repair work. Similarly, there are many farmers who work on their own and hire laborers as and when they require. So in unorganized sector, a large number of people are employed, and they are employed in doing small jobs, selling on the street or doing repair work. Even farmers work on their own and hire laborers. All comes under this. After that, so dear students, we discussed many topics in this. We discussed about how jobs can be created. We discussed about organized sector and unorganized sector. So dear students, we have to understand that many jobs can be created. As in few examples we discussed that in education sector alone 20 lakhs jobs can be created. If tourism as a sector will be improved, then 35 lakhs of job can be created every year. So there are lots of opportunities. It is the duty of government to work in this manner. We also discussed about organized sector and unorganized sector. And you know students, you can easily understand that in unorganized sector, the condition of workers is not good. Government has to protect the workers who are working in unorganized sector. So government is doing lots of things that we will discuss in next class. Till then, thank you and have a nice day.